Where is Mr. Bean, aka Adam Smith? It's a great mystery. Now, personally, if we never see him again, I won't shed a tear because I've never been a fan of the guy. But many of you over the past few weeks have been asking for my view on the current situation with him. Well, the first thing I'll say is that the cover story or stories that have been concocted by the likes of Ben Shalom and Johnny Nelson are quite amusing, right? Ben Shalom and Johnny Nelson between them have said that he's either on holiday or he's sick. Well, which one is it? Because if he's sick, then he's just going to take sick leave, isn't he? He's not going to then go on holiday when he's sick. Doesn't make no sense. I'm sure he's got sick pay in his contract at Sky, and maybe he got sick on holiday. Well, he would just switch it into sick pay, same way. So, yeah, I don't believe the cover stories. And it's not just the stories themselves and the fact that Adam Smith has been silent and gone for so long. Because again, if he was just sick or on holiday, knowing the way Adam Smith is, because I remember being at a show at York Hall and Adam Smith turned up before we were all let in. And remember, there were various boxers who came there to watch the show. And people in the crowd, in the queue, were getting autographs off these various fighters. But then Adam Smith turns up. And Adam Smith is like literally looking left and right, like trying to beg attention, hoping that someone comes up to speak to him. But the crowd literally ignored Adam Smith. Nobody cared. And Adam Smith was like standing there like, please talk to me, fans. Please ask me questions. Please make me feel important. That's what the guy was like. So if Adam Smith really was just on holiday or off sick, he would have said something through social media or put up some silly little video. Oh, I'm fine, guys. Thanks for inquiring. You know what I mean? That's what he would have done by now. So yeah, I don't believe the cover stories. I think they're laughable. And it's not just the stories themselves, as I say, it's the way they were delivered. If you look at those interviews with Johnny Nelson and Ben Shalom, where they're asked about Adam Smith, is their body language convincing to you when they came out with their explanations? Because it wasn't convincing to me. I'll tell you that. Now, one thing that I'm sure many of you know, but perhaps some of you don't, is that the mainstream media is a cutthroat environment. And the people who work in the mainstream media broadly fit into two categories. The first category is useful idiots. By useful idiots, I mean people who are clueless about the world, very naive by nature, but they're able to turn up on time and read an auto cue and take orders. That, I think, constitutes the majority of people in that industry. But the other category, and by the way, that's why they keep their jobs, because they're not smart enough to figure out that not only their organization, but the mainstream media in general is pushing outrageous lies a lot of the time. They're not smart enough to figure it out. If they were smart enough to figure it out and they started kicking up a fuss about it, they wouldn't keep their jobs for long. And that has happened many times. So that leads us on to the second category. And this constitutes a minority of people in the mainstream media, but these are people who tend to ascend oftentimes quite high up, sometimes all the way to the top. And that is scumbags, people who are either mostly or entirely devoid of morals. With these people, of course, pushing lies is of no consequence to them at all. Doesn't bother them in the slightest. They sleep perfectly well at night pushing lies. And not only are they capable of that, but they're also ruthless when it comes to trying to get a leg up in the industry. Backstabbing colleagues, going behind their back, getting them forced out, all this kind of carry on. And, ironically, within the mainstream media, you have heard stories about this kind of stuff occasionally come out. I'm not a fan of either of these people, but Katie Hopkins spoke about how when she was working for, I forget which organization it was, which media organization, but she was working in the same place as Piers Morgan for a time. And she spoke about the dirty tricks that he used to try and get her fired. Do you know what I mean? So all that kind of conniving, backstabbing stuff is very common in the mainstream media. Dirty, dirty tricks. There's a film, actually, if you want to get a flavor of the mentality that prevails among many of the scumbags in the mainstream media. There's a very good film starring Jake Gyllenhaal called Nightcrawler. And that's one of the most accurate depictions of a psychopath, of what Dr. Robert Hare refers to in his book, Without Conscience, as industrial psychopaths. I don't think it's a very good term for industrial psychopaths. Basically just means psychopaths that are professionals. You know, they're not jailbirds and all this kind of stuff. They work in the corporate world and what have you, or just in day-to-day jobs. But that film, Nightcrawler, is a very good depiction. Again, it's a little exaggerated for Hollywood in terms of the stuff that he gets up to. Of course, there are some psychopaths that will do those kind of things, but it's a little exaggerated, but it gives you a very good idea of the mentality, how ruthless and how fake these people are. Psychopaths are, of course, not all of them, but certainly the ones that work in media are extremely good at manipulating, conniving, and having the majority of people eaten out of the palm of their hand, thinking that they're wonderful human beings. Not just the majority of people who work with them, but the majority of the public think they're wonderful human beings. Have them eaten out of the palm of their hand. They're very good at stuff like that. And as I say, that film Nightcrawler is a pretty accurate depiction. Anyway, all that aside, moving on to Adam Smith, I wonder whether he has been the victim of some type of competitive individual within the organization who wants Adam Smith's spot, and if not his specific job role, the power that came with his job role. That's what I wonder, because there's a lot of speculation about why Smith has gone missing. And, you know, for legal reasons, I don't want to indulge in the speculation because, you know, got to be careful making accusations or even looking like you're making inferences sometimes. So I won't talk about what the speculation is specifically. But if Adam Smith has these problems, he's been at Sky for, what is it, 20 odd years, 30 years or something? Surely these problems would have surfaced before now. Now you could say, well, maybe he's only developed the problems in recent years. Again, why now? If it's recent years, plural, let's say the past 4, 5, 6 years, why now and not several years before? The problems must have come to light if this is the reason he's gone missing. And his superiors must have found out about it. And if that's the case, how did the problems come to light? You know what I mean? Did somebody do the dirty on Adam Smith? I wouldn't be surprised because of the nature of that industry. There are people who will come into a company smiling in the face of the very person they plan to take down, being as nice as pie to them. And any of you who have worked at a high level in the corporate world, you'll know this anyway. I'm preaching to the choir. Hey, you already know about it. You've experienced it. Maybe you're one of them people yourself who's willing to be that ruthless. I don't know. As far as it goes with Adam Smith, what do you guys think in the comments below? Has this guy been forced out? And many people are not going to have any sympathy if that is the case, because they believe that he forced certain people out, such as Glenn McCrory. But to be fair, if half of the stuff I've read about Glenn McCrory is true, because there's been lots of stuff that's come out in the papers about him having problems with alcohol and what have you. If half of that stuff is accurate, I'm surprised he kept his job with Sky for as long as he did. You know what I mean? Because he was just going on crazy, allegedly, right? Glenn McCrory. And even in recent times, I think he's been in hot water long after leaving Sky. So he appears to be a guy that's got problems. So I wouldn't necessarily say the McCrory getting sacked from Sky is an indication that Mr. Bean, aka Adam Smith, is this ruthless individual. Maybe he was actually very lenient and tolerant with Glenn McCrory, you know? Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below, what you think has happened with Mr. Bean. Is there anyone out there naive enough to believe the cover stories given by Johnny Nelson and Ben Shalom? And incidentally, I'm not accusing Ben Shalom of anything, but when I look at Ben Shalom's eyes, the first time I ever laid eyes on the guy, I looked at his eyes and I was like, nah. was just, straight away, I was just, nah. You know, when you watch a film and there's a character who comes in smiling and all that, but his eyes just look mad sinister, and you're screaming at the screen like, how can you guys trust this guy? Look at the look in his eyes. Look how shifty this guy is, but nobody can see it. That's how I felt about Ben Shalom from the beginning. That guy just looks mad shifty to me. Mad shifty. And it's very rare that I'll come out and say that about someone right off the bat in boxing, that guy just looks mad shifty. But he looks shifty to me. I'm not accusing him of it. I'm not saying he's got anything to do with the departure of Adam Smith. But if it turned out hypothetically that he did in future, I'd be the least shocked person in the universe.